Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. I'm coming on for a solo episode today talking about some human design things. And what I wanted to talk about today is using human design profiles in relationships and how to navigate relationships through understanding human design profiles. And I know I've talked about human design profiles in the little mini series that I did, the little 9-part series I did called Awakened by Design, just kind of explaining the profiles. But I specifically want to talk about how that works in relationships. And per my human design strategy as a manifesting generator, I'm actually doing this episode as a response to something that happened to me. And that's actually how I get a lot of my ideas for episodes and things. But after it happened, I was like, you know what? This is something that people need to know. So long story short, it happened after a heated discussion with my husband. And I mean, honestly, it really wasn't an argument because we weren't arguing, but it was a heated discussion that ended up, and he needed to cool off, and he wasn't understanding me and I was misunderstanding him. And so after, we both cooled off after the heated discussion, he is someone that tends to marinate on things, and I'm much more easier to just like let it go. And so I could tell it was still kind of, he was stewing on things. And so I said, can I explain something to you that may or may not mean anything, but I feel like I want to explain something. And so he's like, okay, whatever. So I explained to him, because I do this periodically, reminding him, because I've talked to him about his profile before, his human design profile, and like the main parts of his chart. And so I explained to him because and I saw this, I didn't see this in the moment when the discussion was happening, but after we both got so irritated with each other, I was like, oh, okay, I know why this is happening. So I explained to him about our profiles, and just to give you an idea, if, in case this is maybe you or somebody you're in a relationship with, whether it's your spouse or partner or just somebody in your life. But I'm a 3-5, right? I've talked about that before. And my husband is a 2-4. I've also mentioned that before on the show. And so I explained to him historically, and pretty much in any literature you read about human design, 2-4s and 3-5s just don't typically jive very well. And I will say, regardless of our different profiles or of our, seemingly polarizing profiles, we do jive very well, but it does require some understanding. And so anyway, I just went on to explain to him and I'm going to explain when I get into the details of what I want to talk about today, I'll explain more of what I told him. And so as I explain, how I operate in my profile and how he operates in his, and why he was getting annoyed with me and how I was misunderstanding him, he starts nodding his head and he was like, okay. And he looked at me and he goes, that makes total sense. And that was it. It was like him understanding me at that level, and then me like acknowledging that I knew why he was saying what he was saying. He was like, oh, and so then it was just kind of a discussion on, okay, I can do better at this. I just asked that you understand. It wasn't anything that he needed to like, quote, do better. It was him just understanding me. So it was him understanding me in a certain way, me acknowledging him and his profile, then knowing what I could do differently so that we don't, trigger each other. So anyway, after that discussion, I was like, you know what, this is why I need to talk about this, because I feel like, and I've mentioned this before, just in talking about human design in general, that it will literally change your relationships with your kids, your spouse, partner, your team, if you have a business, or in your career, if you manage a team or have a team, like it'll just change your relationships with humans. And I honestly believe that there's so much conflict and there's so many communication issues that could be avoided if we understood each other on this level. And
even just again the basics of people's chart, like the profiles. I think this part affects relationships so much. So what I want to share with you today is I'm going to give a little brief overview again of the profiles, and if you know them, it'll just be a refresher. If you don't, then maybe you'll learn something today. And then I want to talk about how, like, kind of like the gifts and the challenges within each, but how we can navigate that in relationships, and how you, after you go learn your partner's or your spouse's human design, which I hope you'll go look it up. In fact, I'm just telling you, go look it up. Go call her mom or find their birth certificate and look it up. But so that you can have a deeper understanding of them and help them, because I think part of it is yes, understanding each other and being able to navigate our quirks and our um the things that come up that trigger us within our profiles. But also I think it's also our duty to help each other be able to share our gifts in a better way, right? If you help them understand their gifts, and then they can share those gifts in a more confident, authentic way, right? Because they feel seen by you because you understand them, and it allows them to express themselves in a more authentic way. And so I want to share those things with you and to help you navigate like your relationships and your team and all those things. So I'm just going to go through it. So there's 6 profiles. So if you're looking at your chart, it's the 2 numbers, right? It looks like a fraction. So it's going to be like, 2 4 3 5 1 6 6 2, right? It's going to be those numbers. So starting with the 1 profile, okay? If you have a 1 in your profile and you have 2 numbers, for our purposes right now, it doesn't really matter which order they're in. Like that's not the point of this conversation. So it doesn't matter what order they're in. Just know you have 2 numbers, and both of those are going to express themselves in your life, okay? So with the line 1 profile, you have a need to research, or and maybe you or your partner, right? A line 1 has a need to research and investigate. They need to go down all the rabbit holes. They like to investigate. They just really want to understand the foundations or the way things work to help them feel safe and secure. And that is how they find their safety and security. It's understanding things, investigating, researching. The worst thing for a 1 line is a feeling of inferiority, like that they don't know. And their fear is not knowing enough. And they need to know that they know that they know that they know that they know, right? That's the thing. And so 1 lines can get into this cycle of like never ending learning rather than like acting on things, right? And so I think that's something to look at it within yourself and to notice in your partner too, because maybe if you have a partner with the 1 line and you see them, they're going down all the rabbit holes and they're learning all the things and they're not taking action, that might be a conversation, right? For you to have with them. Like, hey, I see you learning all the things. Like, let's act on it. Like, what can I do to help you act on these things, right? Like that's something that you can help them with. And I think that yes, the learning and the investigating, all that helps give them a really good foundation. But it's again, it can put them in this cycle of, well, I don't know enough, right? And so within a relationship, if you have a 1 line or if your partner has a 1 line, well, let me just say this. If you have a 1 line, and this goes for, I mean, this goes for like you as you're like seeking a mate and as you are within a relationship with a mate, with a partner, right? Is this insecurity can come up within you, like you don't know enough, right? And so it's really important for you to take your time to get to know people, right? As you are dating someone, as you're in the process. That's really important for you to get to know each other and for you to not rush into things too quickly, because it is important that, that's what's going to help you feel safe and secure. And the greatest gift, let me talk about this I was going to say first and 1 at the same time for a 1 line. Not having all the information isn't a problem. Remember that. And that's something that you can help yourself with and you can help your partner with. Not having all the information isn't a problem. That is actually the fuel that's going to drive the development of your expertise, right? That's going to drive you forward. And so helping them see their gifts and that not having it all doesn't mean you can't act on it. It doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. And the other thing is, 1 lines are also afraid of being wrong. That's another fear. And you might see this come up in your partner, is that maybe there's someone that feels like they always have to be right. And maybe they're afraid to take a stand on a certain thing just because they don't want to be wrong. They don't have all the information, so they can't take a stand because they don't want to be wrong, right? And I think something to help them or you, if that's you, or if that's your partner or someone you're in a relationship with in your life, to believe like it's safe to share what I know, even though I am a lifelong student, right? Because as a one line, you're a lifelong student. You never stop learning. And so that's why getting into this cycle of like, I'm just going to learn all the things and not take action, like that is going to be literally going to be a never ending cycle because you are a lifelong student and you're going to be a forever student. You're going to be learning forever. So it's safe to share what you know for now and continue to learn and helping your partner believe that too. Okay. So let's go to the two lines. And I'm familiar with this one because my husband, so I can speak a lot of experience on this one. So for two line profiles are the natural, right? They have this innate talent for whatever it is that they do. And if you ask them about it, they honestly have no idea how it is that they know how to do it or how they learn. Like it's just literally, it's natural. They're called the natural because it comes naturally to them. It's so natural to them that they don't even see their gift, even though the people around them do. And I find, well, let me say this first before I give my opinion. So the other thing about a two line, the two line is also called the hermit. And I know that connotation can be like, oh, it sounds weird, but they're very self-contained. And it's interesting is because they need time to themselves. Like isolation during periods of time is really important for a two line. That's kind of how they recharge and bring out those natural abilities within themselves. And so having like a safe space to either go somewhere to be alone or whatever that is, that's important for a two line. And so if you were in a relationship with a two line, it's and really important for you to understand that there's this dance between engaging and evolving through relationships and then also cultivating their relationship with themselves or yourself if that's you. So if you're in a relationship, that's how I started the sentence. So if you're in a relationship with someone, understanding that there is this need for them to be by themselves at times, and then there's a need for them to be with people at times, right? So like I understand this within my husband. Sometimes my husband well, he likes to be like, it's funny. We were talking about this just a couple weeks ago because a friend of mine was talking about her husband. And I'm like, I guarantee you your husband has a two line and a two. Um, or no, she was talking about herself and how they were different, but she does the same thing as my husband. And I'm like, I guarantee you have a two line because my husband likes to go out to be by himself, but to be around people. Like his favorite thing is to get out by himself and be around people. like, and that's kind of a like classic two thing. It's like, I want my time alone, but then I want to be in like a setting where there's people around. Like, he likes to go window shopping or shopping by himself. Like it's just, it's what he likes to do. And it's like his own time, but then he's around people. So anyway, understanding that about a two line can be really important because otherwise you could be like, it could be one of those things. Well, why don't you want to be with me? Right. Or are you going out and going to do all these things by yourself or you're going to be around people, right? There can be conversations around that with people. So understanding that a two line, they need that. That's how they recharge. The other part about a two line being the natural is because two lines are so unaware of their natural gifts and talents and that it requires other people to pull those out of them. And so there was a story I told in my podcast when I was talking the last episode about where I talked about profiles. You can go to this series, Wake Up by Design, and you'll see it says profiles. But I was telling a story about my husband, and he's doing some work. He's working for his brother's startup studio. And it was a hard transition for him because he kept questioning why. Like, why was his brother offering him this job? Right. He kept, he felt like he may not be worthy of it or he didn't have the qualifications or I don't get what he sees. That's what he kept saying. I just don't get. And so and this is when we really dove in his profile because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like classic two line. Do you not see what's happening? He is literally, your brother is recognizing your gifts and talents and he's pulling them forward and is like, hey, these are valuable. Here's a job, right? Stop questioning it. It's like, I'm like, why are you questioning it? He's seeing your talents. And so a lot of times with the two line, if you have a partner with a two line, like helping them see their gifts and talents, because a lot of times they don't see their gifts and talents until they see it through someone else's eyes. And you, being in a relationship with that someone, sometimes have to be that person to show them these are your gifts and your talents. They have to see it through your eyes. And that is what the gift that you can give them of just being a partner in a relationship with them, that you can help them see that. And a lot of times a two line will dim their light, hide their light, or hide, because they don't see their gifts like everyone else does. And understanding like the world needs your magic as a two line. The world needs their magic. Just because it comes easy to you doesn't mean it's easy. That's your gift. And so you helping them understand that that is their gift, and that is, it's meant to be shared with the world. And at the same time, again, navigating that hermit side of them where they are going to need time to be alone, right? And understand that there's kind of this dance between being around people and then they need hermit time, right? Maybe that's what you call it. If you're leaving, hey, I'm going to go do some hermit time. I'll be back, right? Or you're going into your room and you're shutting the door. I'm going to be doing my hermit time, right? Giving them that time and that space. Okay, moving on to three lines. So three line, and I can say a lot about this because I have this one in my profile, so I can speak from experience. So for a three line, this is the three line has all the tenacity and grit you can imagine. They are here to fully experience life, but they must experience everything for themselves, because this is how they learn what they're here to learn, is learning it themselves. Three lines are here to fail forward. You might have heard that phrase before, fail forward. Three lines, that is like the motto of a three line, is failing forward. There are no mistakes. You fail and you move forward and you keep going. That's it. Three lines are often led to believe that they're trying too many things or they're making too many mistakes, but this just isn't the case for a three line, right? It's literally the only way for them to learn their lesson is by failing and making mistakes. And because it's really all about the discovery and the change and the mutation, the evolution. Like that's what a three line thrives on. And if you know me now and you're listening to this, you're like, oh, like things are making sense because that's me. Things are constantly changing and shifting. I'm constantly trying new things. I'm constantly like, oh, this didn't work. Let's do this now. Let's change this. And I will say, if you're a three line and you're running a team or a company, this is probably a good thing to explain to people, because not everybody can jive with that, right? Like not everybody can be on a team with somebody who is constantly changing things. And especially a four line, which I'm going to get to in a second, and my husband, this is where things can clash. Four lines do not like change. And so if you have someone on your team who doesn't like change, it may not be a good fit, or they just need to be made aware of like, hey, this is how things are going to go around here, right? So three lines. So here, I'm going to explain deeper into the conversation my husband and I had and what I was explaining to him. So with our profiles, me as a 3-5, him as a 2-4. So the conversation was around him offering like insight, advice, things like that, right? And that I'm not always receptive to it. And he sees it as, I just don't want to hear it, right? Or I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I don't care what he has to say. I don't value what he has to say, right? For me, how I see it is I hear him, like I hear what you're saying, but I have to do things my own way, right? And in that, for him, that was triggering for him, because he's like, but you're not valuing what I'm telling you. And I'm like, no, I value it, but I'm just going to try it this way, right? And this is like, again, stereotypical three line thing is what I said earlier. I said three lines, you have to experience everything yourself, because this is how you learn. So it explained to him after we had this heated discussion was basically telling him like, I just need you to understand how I operate. And it's not a slap in your face that I'm not listening, or I'm not, putting what you're saying into practice or into action. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, or sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I'll take some things of what you're saying, but then I'm going to kind of do it this way. I'm going to put my own spin on it, right? And it's no like insult or throwing shade on what you're saying, or like, I don't care what you say, but it's literally because like literally how I'm wired is I have to do it myself. I have to do it my way, period. Like that's it. I don't know any other way to do it. It's how I'm wired. It's how I'm designed. And so and things constantly changing and shifting, right? There's constant change, and for me, I've changed who I'm speaking to in my business multiple times, right? What I'm bringing into my practice, how I'm working with clients, right? All these things are constantly changing and shifting. And that is what it's all about for a third line. It's adaptation and discovery, right? It's all about that. And so if you're in a relationship with a three line, there is a lot of patience that's required with the three line, because you have to understand their method is all about their personal evolution and discovery, right? The experiences that they're having, the quote unquote failures that they're having, they're crucial for their personal evolution and discovery. And it's all about that. And so, yes, you're going to see mistakes. You're going to see them try things and maybe try literally 58 different things before the one thing sticks. And that's just how it is. So understanding, and I think when you understand that part, you can also help them understand, like, keep the perspective, the ideal perspective in those situations. And my husband does do that a lot, where he's like, this is just, it's one more no closer to the yes, right? Something like that, where it's like, yes, mistakes and failings aren't problems. They are literally the building blocks for success. They're building blocks to set you on your path. You're failing forward. So helping a three line, sometimes three lines need a reminder. I know, because I know sometimes for me as a three line, I resent my three line. I resent it so much. I'm like, I'm tired of trying all the things. I don't want to try anything else. I don't want to fail anymore. I don't want to try anything else. I don't, it gets old sometimes. And then you have to remember, okay, no, this is what activates me. This is what keeps me on the path. And so helping your three line in your life and in your life understand the same thing, that this is their gift, right? If they're afraid of being messy and just screwing things up and messing things up all the time, your biggest blessings come from your biggest risks, and your messiness and your, failures, or whatever word you want to use. It's relatable and it's empowering. And that is how you bring your story to life, right? And if you have a business, that's how you bring your story to life, as you're sharing your messiness and your mistakes and all of that. But I think just understanding that about a three line and how that can affect other people. So again, especially the three and the four line, especially the three and the four can be, and then I would also say, because I really think the two line as well. I already talked about the two line, because I think what I told him with the two line, because you're the natural, right? And you naturally just know things and know how to do things. And I think sometimes he sees that too, where he's like, why aren't you listening to what I'm saying? Like, I know things, like, I just know that this is what I'm saying is good. And I'm like, no, I believe you. And I'm not discrediting that. I'm not saying it's not good, but I'm going to go do things my way. Right. And so that can be really triggering to a two line too, where they're like, well, what the heck are you doing? I just gave you these really good ideas because they just came naturally to me and you're not doing anything with them. Right. So understanding that and being able to navigate and realize with the three line, like, they're going to do things their own way. And it's nothing against, it's not about like doing it just to do the opposite of what you're saying. It's because that's how they're wired and that's how they do things. So that's the three line. Moving on to the four. So the four line is, again, this is the other part of my husband, so I can speak from experience with the four line. You are deeply influential in the community. You build community, you have a strong network, and kind of like the two, you're kind of unaware that this is a gift, of having this network is a gift. The four line moves, you like stability, right? You like a strong foundation, and you're not someone who moves on to the next thing until the other foundation is set. So, like, for example, you're not going to move on, you're not going to quit your job on a whim without a backup plan. Whereas for a three line, that's what you do. You're like, oh, well, screw this. I'm going to go do this now. Like, it's like, well, I'm just going to try the next thing. That is like a four line's worst nightmare. Four lines do not like change, and they like to have a strong foundation and have something set in place before they move on to the next thing, right? Even like, they're the people that have the backup to the backup to the backup plan, right? And this, again, is where a three and a four line can really clash. I was going to say crash. I guess maybe that's true too, but they can really clash. So when we're talking about a four line, they're the people that have, like, 24 different groups of friends. And this is, if you know my husband at all, you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. My husband has so many random groups of friends and random group texts that he's in. They have this, they just really strongly value these friendship networks and to have these different communities. And that's where they thrive. They love having communities. They love being able to be a part of it, and they love leading. And that's where they thrive too. And so like if and this is for anybody who's like dating or in the dating scene, like that's how a four line, that's how you meet your mate, right? That's how you meet. It's through a network of friends. Like it's a friend of a friend that you were set up on a date with, right? Or it's a friend that you met at, like it's the whole like we were best friends first, right? And honestly, that is how me and my husband got married. Like we were friends first. We set each other up with other friends. Like we literally, I know people say a little, oh yeah, we were best friends. We really were friends though. We were friends for a while before we started dating. And that's how four lines operate. They have this network, they build the network, and that's how the relationships thrive. And so for a four line, if you're in a relationship with a four line, understanding that, because I think for some people, especially if you're more of like a loner type, like a five line, which that's me, you're more of a loner type and more like of an independent type. So you don't necessarily like meet a lot of people in groups of friends, and you typically don't. As a five line, you don't, but you're okay with it. It sometimes it can be a triggering thing where you're like I mentioned in the other episode that I did, that for a while was like, well, do I need to, like, maybe I need to go make more friends, right? Like he's got all these different friend groups. Like, do I need, but for me as a five line, that's not what I'm here to do. Like I'm five lines are here to have just a few solid close relationships. They're not here to have they're more lone wolves. That's how they thrive, and they do things better as a lone wolf. And that's just kind of how they do things. But with a four line, if you have a four line in your life, understanding that them having 28 different groups of friends is nothing against your relationship, right? I think, and I feel like this could be because I hear conversations with like young girls about this all the time. Like they get jealous of their boyfriend's, friend group, whatever. But if we're looking at this from a human design perspective, right, there's nothing threatening about them having multiple friend groups. This is how they thrive, and this is how that's what fuels them. And that's how they build. Their life is built on their network, right? You hear like the whole saying, look, your net worth is all about your network, whatever. Your network is all based on your network. And that's a four line. Like that's a four line. And so building a business, building a brand, whatever your career is, it's built on your network. And so it's not about like um doing that to take away time from their partner or their spouse or their mate or whatever. That's just how they thrive. And so there has to be an understanding too, as a four line, understanding that your partner, if they don't have a four line, probably isn't going to see the things the same way as you. So sometimes there's conversations that need to happen, and there may be boundaries that need to be set, that it's not all about, right, your social circle, but just understanding that that's going to be there. So here's the other thing about a four line. Your foundational beliefs and values changing is not a problem, right? Remembering that it's a stepping stone to more authentic connections. And because you are all about authentic connections. And I think sometimes too with a four line, with a four line, you have the fear of, and this is kind of how, when you build a solid network, then you hold on to it. And so I think there's kind of this period where it's kind of like a trial period is the word that's coming up. I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, but it's kind of like, I guess I'll use the word trial period, because a big fear for a four line is that like your feelings and your care and your connection, right? Like your efforts at building that are not going to be reciprocated. So for four lines are really good at like, if somebody's not reciprocal in this relationship, I'm cutting it off. Like it's kind of clear cut. And I know my husband has had relationships like that where it's like, this is a really one-way relationship, right? Like this isn't working for me. And just kind of lets those relationships go by the wayside. And that's what four lines. So a four line is really good at identifying what are quality relationships, and can be afraid that their efforts not reciprocated. And sometimes I think too, if you have a four line in your life, you might have to validate them in that, right? Like, yeah, I see, like this is a one relationship. This is not going to work for you, right? And it's not going to work for a four line. If you have a four line in your life, they're really big on like trust. And not that obviously that's important in every relationship, but for a four line, because it's all about, right, like the connection and that kind of thing, relationship, trust, a lot of TLC, like they need that nurturing. They're going to need that nurturing in their relationship. So knowing that their love language might be different than yours because they are going to need more nurturing, and to know that you're constantly showing that, proving, not proving, I don't want to say that's not a good word, but knowing that they can trust you, right? There's a deep level of trust and authenticity and connection, right? It's really important for them in a relationship. So just kind of, knowing that and proving that to them. Not, I'm going to say proving again, showing that to them is what I want to say. Okay, moving on to the 5 line. The 5 line, and this is also me, so I can say this from experience, is all about projection, right? It's this karmic mirror for anyone who encounters it. It's always moving. It's the aura of the 5 line. It invites other people to project onto it, and it may project solutions onto other people, whether it's asked for or not. So what this means is 5 lines they're in what's called the projection field, and people often put their projections on the 5 line. The 5 line is called the hero or the heretic. And people sometimes see that and see them as the hero. They see it and then they project things onto them. And so a lot of times the 5 line is very misunderstood. And I mean, because who wants their karma reflected back to them like all the time, right? And sometimes being a 5 line can feel isolating. You can feel like a misfit. And this too is kind of why 5 lines are lone wolves. Like they just don't have, typically, they don't have huge groups of friends because that can be exhausting, like constantly being projected on. People see you as this and people see you as that and people see you as this when you're like, actually, none of those things are true, right? But it's just how a 5 line is. 5 lines, they see you in a certain way, right? So 5 lines can have this kind of mysterious energy to them. And you kind of have to like peel back layers to get to the root of who a 5 line is, because a lot of times they have a hard time showing who they really are because of that projection field, because they know that they're so constantly projected on and people are going to not see them in their true light, right? So when you really get to the depth of a 5 line, you can really see their power and their leadership potential and their authenticity, and see like them at their truest, at their core. And if you have a 5 line in your life, I think that this is something that you can really help them with. And giving them the encouragement and the validation that they need to just be themselves, because I think the biggest fear for a 5 line is the backlash from just being your unfiltered authentic self, right? And fearing what's going to happen if you do show who you really are, because whether you show who you really are or not, people are going to misinterpret it as a 5 line. They just are. They're going to misunderstand and misinterpret you. And so 5 lines can be afraid to really show who they really are. There are going to be incorrect projections. There are going to be incorrect expectations. And this isn't a problem, right? When you have this, or when a 5 line in your life has these projections, these incorrect expectations or views of who you are as a person, this is the soapbox that you get to stand on when sharing your solutions, right? This is the soapbox you get to stand on to show who you really are, and helping the 5 line in your life understand this. And again, giving them the encouragement and the confidence that they need to really be themselves. Because when you're living in fear of the backlash of not being yourself, then you're hiding your light, right? And talk about this a lot, about hiding your light and dimming your light. And I mentioned it with the 2 line. That's not how we're meant to live. We're not meant to hide our light and dim our life and not be able to be ourselves. So if you're in a partnership with someone, they chose you for a reason. Like they see the real you. And so for you, if you have a 5 line in your life, giving them the words and the actions that are needed to show them, like, I see you, I see the real you. And, you don't have to impress me. You don't have to try to be this or try to be that. Like just helping them see that I see the real you. I see you. They want to feel seen. 5 lines want to feel seen. And honestly, I think that's a big reason my husband and I got together. We started dating is we were friends first because he's a 4 line. So we were friends first. And then that was, and I remember saying this in a podcast interview I did a long time ago, sometime, maybe beginning of last year. And it was on somebody else's podcast. And that was the first time I had really put our human design profiles together and realized I'm like, oh wait, this is like human design thing, because I said in the interview that like being with him was the first time I felt seen. And when I was experiencing it, like in the moment when it was happening, I couldn't really put words to it. I couldn't really explain that. But then as you know, as I've kind of grown on my own personal journey, I'm able to see it, and I see now that's exactly what it was. I felt seen. And I didn't feel like I had to be anyone else or act or hide things about me, or not necessarily hide, but like not share all of me with someone, right? Or be kind of like embarrassed about certain things about myself, or need to, like those kind of things. And so knowing that with a fifth line, if you're in a relationship with your fifth line, or if you have a five line on your team, or you are led by a five line, like five lines fear showing their true selves. And a lot of times that can cause a lot of resistance within their bodies, a lot of stuck energy in their bodies. And right, we're going to go down the rabbit hole there. It can lead to dis-ease. And so, five lines, show up. That's it. Show up, be yourself. That's it. So help the five line in your life see that. Okay, last one here, the six. Okay. So for my six lines are typically old souls, and they go through these three really distinct phases in life. From 0 to 30s, from ages 0 to 30, you're really a three line. So you live the first 30 years of your life as a three line. And so you can go back and listen to what I said about a three line. It's all about experiencing life, experimenting, making mistakes, all that, right? From 30 to 50 is about integrating the lessons you learned from the first 30 years, right? And then from 60 on, it's about becoming the role model. And that's what the sixth line is. It's the role model. Not to say you can't be a role model before the age of 60, but the point is that you've gathered all this learning along the way, and there's kind of this process. And from 60 on, you're sharing life's lessons and wisdom from a deeper place. So of course you can share your life lessons from 0 to 60, but it's coming from a different place over 60, right? So with the sixth line, sometimes six lines can be seen as aloof, or they can be seen as like out there. They sometimes can be really mystical in the way they think about things, have this very introspective way of seeing things in a very I find a lot of six lines. I have been in a lot of six line spaces in the coaching space. Like I've worked with a lot of six line mentors, and they have always been the most like spiritually in tuned people. Like again, that's why I think six lines are old souls. Like they've seen things. Like that's what I think. They've seen things. And so I think sometimes six lines, they can feel like they're going to be a late bloomer, right? It's like, well, crap, not going to be able to share my wisdom till the age of 60, which again doesn't mean you can't wait until then. But when you're sharing it over the age of 60, it's coming from a different place. But being a late bloomer is not a problem. It's this, you're building this fertile ground for you to show others what wisdom really looks like, right? And so helping your sixth line in your life understand that and learn from that, and understand like the kind of the phases that I was talking about. And so like 0 to 30, right? It's this experimentation phase. 30 to 50, you're implementing things. And so I think you also, if you're in a relationship with six line, understanding that as well. And it's just like understanding being with the three line. It's all about experimenting and evolution and shifting and changing. And that can be a problem if you're someone who doesn't like change. And that's going to happen for a six line. It's going to happen a lot. And I think another thing for a six line is they can often hide because they're waiting until things are like refined enough for them, for like their taste. And it's really they kind of wait for, it's like it's kind of the perfectionist tendencies, right? Well, I gotta wait. Again, you hear like, oh, well, I gotta wait till 60 to share my no. The thing is, you can release your attachment to this kind of perceived perfection, and you can share your wisdom with the world and refine your message in the process. Do you see what I mean? You don't have to wait till you're 60 to share what you learned. It defeats the purpose. But you're basically it's just like it's like the compound effect, right? You're going to have lessons on top of lessons on top of lessons, and you're refining that message, those lessons that you're sharing in the process. So as you go through these 3 phases in your life, you're just going to compound on the things you've already learned. And then now your lessons are going to have these deeper, more refined meanings attached to them, you see? And so helping the 6th line in your life not to, wait until they have life figured out, basically. You don't have to wait until you have life figured out to share your wisdom and what you know. And I've heard stories too. This is in a group I was in a while back. I was hearing stories of women who were 6 lines. And again, I think it's going back to the whole like old soul thing, and also like going through these different like phases in their life, that they have so much wisdom to share, and they have these really they're really in tune with their intuition. And again, there's kind of these like mystical kind of aspects of people who are 6 lines, at least what I found. And these women, the reason I'm telling you this story is these women were seeing themselves as like mystics and healers, and like basically felt like they wanted to make these huge career shifts because they were in like more corporate-y type jobs or whatever. And they felt themselves like they had all this wisdom they wanted to share and this new way of doing it. But they felt like it was kind of that perfection thing showing up. Well, I don't know enough yet. Like, let me wait till maybe I need more lessons, or maybe I'm waiting for, I need to be able to wait to tell this in a different way. When it's like, no, like if you're feeling it, you have wisdom to share, then share it, right? You have life experiences you want to teach from, teach it. You have lessons you want to share, right? So encouraging the 6th line in your life that they don't have to wait till things are perfect, right? You're sharing your wisdom with the world. You're refining your message in the process. And also that being a late bloomer isn't a problem. So knowing that you're going to have really in-depth things to teach the world at age 60 doesn't need to make you depressed until you get there, thinking you can't do anything with your life until there. You're still learning, you're implementing, you're making huge life discoveries that are here to teach the world, and being patient with the 6th line in your life, that they are going through this process, but then recognizing their gifts and the lessons that they have learned, and being able to learn from the 6th line in your life. I think that's another really cool thing. So I think that's all I wanted to leave you with on this episode. And I hope that this explanation of the profiles and understanding how to kind of navigate these, I really, really, really strongly believe that so many disagreements and misunderstandings and communication issues can be solved. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I really feel like we could solve a lot of them by understanding each other at this level. And so if you are an entrepreneur, business owner, go get your team's human design, right? Learn their profiles, understand them, help them understand you, right? Go get your partner or your spouses, your kids, understand each other, understand how you operate, and what these profile lines are. I really think that this could be such a huge topic of conversation within your relationships, and can just really be so helpful to our growth and our evolution, and just, healthy communication, and just understanding each other and giving each other grace when we need it, patience when we need it, and encouraging each other when we're able to see the struggles within each of those profiles, being that cheerleader for each other when we need it. So I hope this helps, and I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's at @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.